a note or two as we go. And Nearpod code was posted in the classroom. Hopefully I got the right classroom this time. The other day I posted it and it went into the wrong classroom. It's a bit unfortunate. All right. WJ3HG. WJ3HG, and as per normal, if it gets lost or if Wi-Fi breaks, then the code's up there in the top left-hand corner, or you can obviously ask. All right, so we're moving on. Okay, we've got about 2 big theoretical things to cover. All right, that we need to cover for a particular reason that's going to occur in April. All right, now you have access. I've given you access to the site for your revision, right, for the mid-course, and giving you access to the information sheet about the mid-course. Okay, so please do go through those, go over those, make extra notes, ask yourself questions, test each other on definitions, all of those sorts of key revision type skills. And as I said to you the other day, if you're not 100% sure how to do revision, then ask. There's lots of people who can help, okay, including your tutor, who you see every day. Now, as we go through this, there will be some quite quirky words that we need to make sure that we are comfortable with. Please don't panic about them at all, right? We will get used to them. All right, so I put units 4 and 5 together because I thought that worked better for us where we are. Right, so a bit of a reminder. We were discussing this idea of economies of scale. The idea that as your business grew, you were able to reduce your average costs. And we had a whole bunch of reasons why that was going to happen. All right, internally, so inside the business, within our control, we were going to be able to purchase, bulk buy a range of products because of our size that we possibly wouldn't be able to do because we'd be a smaller business, right? But because we're a bigger business, we are bulk buying, in which case we're able to get discounts off of the price, and that reduces our average costs. We talked about marketing and how, again, if we were bigger, we would be able to produce some fantastic marketing, put a whole lot of money into it, and gain extra revenues, etc., that we wouldn't necessarily gain because we couldn't do those marketing. We might be able to get deals, special discounts again on marketing, all right, because we were bigger. Okay. Financial, right? That's about getting a loan from the bank. That might be that the bank gives us a loan when they previously wouldn't if we were a smaller business. Or it might be that the bank gives us a more favorable rate of interest. Okay. I don't know if you know the difference between a personal loan that you might get from a bank and a mortgage. You know what a mortgage is? It's a loan. It's a big loan that you get from a bank. Quite often you get a mortgage for a house. Not everybody, but you might. Yeah. So they're quite big loans. Okay. Now, because of the size of the loan, the interest rates tend to be less than a personal loan, which you might borrow from the bank to, I don't know, buy a car or go on holiday or something along those sort of lines. Yeah. That's why in America, they were borrowing on their mortgage in order to get a new car, right? Because the banks were allowing them to do that and to pay off their credit cards and all of those sorts of things. Because it was cheaper to do it that way. Technical or technological economies, that's where you're bigger, you're producing more, so therefore you're able to afford the latest and greatest technologies, which make you more productive, more efficient, reducing your costs. Yeah. You know, there are schools that don't have computers. I mean, could you imagine this day and age trying to come to school and learning from a textbook? Yeah. There are schools that might have dodgy Wi-Fi that can't connect to the internet. Can you imagine? I can. I could call it them. Yeah. One of the fun ones was when we were teaching in China, and of course China doesn't have a good relationship with Google. And so it's, oh, and that's on, no, we have to use this site to do, yeah. All right, so the school had to have a VPN in order for us to access Google. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to. Risk bearing. Now that's that idea we talked about of producing more products, just having a wider product line. You are what's called, here's a fancy word for you, diversification. You are diversifying or spreading the risk. All right, so the demand for one product goes down, but you've still got 5 or 6 other products that are earning you revenue. Okay, if you look at Apple, that's a good example where they've got multiple product lines. Some of them will be more successful one year than others. Apparently there are some new iPads coming out very soon that are going to be awesome. And obviously the new laptops, etc., with the new chips, etc., they're going to be pretty amazing, apparently. Then there are ones that are outside of your business's control, and we talked about these. The idea of having a skilled workforce. You, the business, don't have control over that. I mean, when you hire them and bring them into your business, then you can train them up. But when they're just outside applying for a job, you don't have control over what skills they have. They may not have the skills you need. Joint marketing. We didn't talk about that one the other day, but it's relatively straightforward. It's pretty much exactly as it sounds. There's 2 businesses and they agree to market each other's products. And by doing so, they're halving potentially the cost of marketing. All right, so you go into a supermarket and you'll see that the supermarket is promoting the products of the different products it is selling. It's not promoting the supermarket, it's promoting the products of the companies that sells, of companies' products that sells. You go into a restaurant and they might be only offering Pepsi because they've got a special deal marketing Pepsi. Or you go into a different restaurant and they've only got Coca-Cola. They've got a special deal with regards to that. Shared infrastructure, that's the roads, the plumbing, the Wi-Fi, all of those sorts of things that we see out there that the government has a strong contribution to, but you, the business, have no control over. So it's just fortune if you get it, if they get it right for you. Yeah, very fortunate. Big road opens up. Everybody's now able to come to your business. Absolutely fortunate. Yeah, I mean, again, look at where the school is here. Purpose-built environment. Very fortunate to be able to set up. Yeah. All right. So that was the review of the theory the other day. So what we need to do now is to explain it. Away you go. Just do one internal and one external economy of scale. Have a go. You were marked absent in tutor time there, Abu. You were marked absent in tutor time. Just letting you know. Registration time. There we go, it's fixed now. Down Good work, Adrian. Yes. All right. You understand that? Does that make sense? Good. Google it. In the supermarket that we worked in, the Coca-Cola used to hire its own people. They were called merchandisers, and they would come into the store and they would order new Coca-Cola for us. They would put up the marketing for Coca-Cola, right? You know, whatever new display, etc., that they were wanting to do. And they would do all of that and keep track of all of the products and make sure we all had enough. And we had their number, so we could call the merchandiser and say, hey, look, we're running low on. Can you bring us more in? Now, that's the reason why they're able to afford to do that, is because they're a very, very big company. Not every company is going to be able to afford to have a team of people traveling around the retail stores, checking, right, the product levels, right, making sure that Pepsi hasn't come in and put their products in front of the Coca-Cola ones, because yes, they used to try that sort of trick, right, and getting the new displays out, that of giant cardboard cutouts and all of those sorts of things. Oh, can I tell you a marketing thing? Very quick. Have you heard of a product called Coke Zero? Some of you have? Yeah? Do you know where it came from? Right, what did the marketing company at Coca-Cola, marketing team at Coca-Cola decide with regards to Coke Zero, do you think? What is Coke Zero? What's the difference between Coke Zero and normal Coke? No sugar. All right. Now, they already have a no sugar type of Coke. What's that called? Diet Coke. So why would they create Coke Zero? They already have a sugar-less Coca-Cola. So why would they have Coke Zero? It's going to come down to something so obvious that, or say obvious, very psychological, and you're going to think, no, surely not, but it's absolutely the truth. All right, around about half of the Coca-Cola customers who they estimated would buy Coke Zero weren't buying Diet Coke. Why not? What unified that group of people? I'll give you a wee clue. What gender were they? Who doesn't buy Diet Coke? What gender buys Diet Coke less? I'll give you a clue. There's more of them in the room than the other gender. Yeah. Yeah. Coca-Cola's market has worked out that guys have a bit of a phobia with regards to the product, the word diet. All right? It's seen psychologically, yeah, the marketers feel that the word diet, guys see it as a, okay, apologies, a female word, right? Women buy diet products is what the marketers had decided. So therefore, they knew that there were guys who would buy the product, but they were actively put off buying it because it was called Diet Coke. So what did they do? Take Diet Coke and do what with it? Rebrand it as Zero Coke. Because guys are perfectly happy to buy something called Coke Zero, but not as happy to buy Diet Coke. Yeah? Okay? And then, of course, it helped that they advertised it with, you know, people jumping on and off of trucks. Right, Coke Zero, right, the tagline for it, zero sugar, zero limits. They connected it to the James Bond franchise. Right, all of a sudden, guys were buying it like it was, you know, water. Okay? It was very, very successful. It's only been relatively recently that they've actually rebranded it slightly again to try and make the cans look almost the same. Right, so they've reduced the big branding on the side to just a small brand on the side so that all of the cans actually look a lot similar. That reduces their costs as well, by the way. Well done, team. Looking very good. Did you have a go, Brandon? No? Maybe next time? All right. Now, just as we could be decreasing our costs, it is possible that we might see our costs increasing due to our size. Right? We might become so large that we're actually inefficient. And it's, you see it often. If you've gone into a big store and you've tried to find a product, and they've said, oh, the person who does that isn't here at the moment. Hold on, we'll have to go and see if we can find someone who can help you. Well, why can't that person help you? Well, because they're not the expert in that product. So by expanding their business and hiring specialists, it's meant that not everybody can do every task. So you, the customer, come in, and all of a sudden the business is inefficient, because you can't get the answer you want because the person doesn't know. There's the expert in there. So you become too big and you actually increase costs. There are two main ways this happens. The first, don't worry, leave that on, is these ones. The first way is communication. All right? And we know this. I experience this, not quite as frequently as when I lived in China, but still sometimes, yeah. I'm trying to explain something or ask a question, and people don't always understand what it is I'm saying. You might experience that yourselves, I don't know. Yeah. Well, imagine trying to do that when it's important. When it's, we need 10,000 units of whatever produced, they need to be shipped to this address. They need to have these additional things added to them. Right. The one here in Malaysia, I try and explain where we live, and people get confused. Because how I would say it in New Zealand, you don't say it in Malaysia like that. So I would say 2 bar 3. And that gets people all kinds of confused. Apparently it's not 2 bar 3, it's 2 stroke 3. Yeah. I used to tell people in China my telephone number, and they used to get confused. And I was just saying numbers. Because in New Zealand, you would say 017. But no, that confused the heck out of people. O, that's a letter. It's not a number. Does your telephone number start with a letter? No, it's the number 01. It's very American, perhaps. Americans do that sort of thing all the time. They have 018 numbers, right? Okay. Oh, a car passed me today. This is a completely different story. Car passed me today, and I saw its number plate. And I thought if anybody should change their number plate, it was this car. Because the number plate, the registration on this particular car that passed me, hopefully it wasn't any of you, right, was CDC 911. I'm going to guess they didn't pick that particular number plate. I'm kind of hoping they didn't. But CDC is Americanism for Center for Disease Control, and 911 is the emergency telephone number. So, yeah, if it was me, I would have changed that one, particularly at the moment. Now, communication is a real issue. Think about just how difficult it is for you to communicate here at school. All right, you're dealing, right, if you've ordered a lunch and there's some problem with the lunch, who do you talk to? Yeah. Okay, imagine trying to do that over the telephone. Different time zones, different languages, different understandings, different accents. Yeah, all of those. Or this one. As we said before, the idea that there are management, and then you might hire specialist management, but that specialist management isn't necessarily better. You need the manager, so you hire them, but maybe they aren't as efficient as they could be. So you need to keep hiring more and more managers because you need it because of your output, your scale. Right, we hinted at this a little while ago. This is just a reminder. We talked about how small businesses might actually be better in some aspects than large businesses. They might be able to access what's called a niche market. Niche is a fancy word for small. Okay. The idea is it's unique, specialist. If you haven't read, there's a famous philosopher, Chinese philosopher called Sun Tzu, and he wrote a very famous book called The Art of War. And it's been translated and applied in a whole lot of different situations. And there is a book, I read it, I don't know how many years ago now, and what he did, this particular author, is he translated The Art of War into a business framework. And he was using the strategies of warfare to describe how businesses work and strategies businesses could employ. And one of the ones that he talked about, that Sun Tzu talked about, and that was if you're fighting an elephant, your best strategy is to be where the elephant isn't. And so he talked about that in the context of business. And if you're a very little business and you're competing with a very big business, then chances are your best strategy is to pick a small area where that big business isn't. Okay? And by doing that, you're able to generate revenues because the elephant isn't there. If you're smaller, one of the problems is that you don't have the access to capital. You don't have the loans. You're not going to be able to get the money. However, it might be cheaper to run a small business. You might be more adaptable, more flexible, more personalized service. We talked about those a while back. All right, but we might actually therefore want to grow our business to gain those economies of scale. So the first way we can grow a business is called internally, inside our business. We can grow it by producing more. Just that simple. How do you make your business bigger? You make more products. You produce more. That's probably the easiest one you're going to do. How do you make your business bigger? Well, firstly, produce more. There's a famous story, I don't know if it's true, about Coca-Cola, and they were celebrating the production of their 1 millionth bottle of Coca-Cola. So it was going back a while. And the CEO stood up there and they were all cheering and celebrating. And he said, now it's not about the millionth bottle. It's now about the next million. Expand your business. You produce more. We're going to look eventually at different types of structure of business, different ways of owning and operating a business. And part of that is going to be connected to how you can grow your business, maybe by changing the way the business is actually owned and structured. But firstly, part 2, how to grow your business. You can expand it by taking over other businesses. That's outside of your business, okay? So if you see a competitor, a competing business, and you want to increase the size of your business, just merge with them. Take them over. Your business gets bigger, the level of competition drops. You guys see this all the time. You just don't always recognize that that's actually what's happening. We have 2 types of external expansion, right? One is called horizontal and the other is called vertical. So yes, there's a little bit of terminology here that you're going to need to get to grips with. One of the words that we use now is integration, which sounds an awful lot like maths, but isn't. All right? The idea of integration is quite simply the bringing together, the integrating, bringing together. Right? So that's the image here of the 2 different businesses trying to join together. Now, that it's not always successful, and there are lots of stories where businesses have tried to get together and it's failed. Other stories where businesses have gotten together and it's proved very successful. And we'll look at some of those. But the words we need: integration, which means the bringing together of the businesses, the merging of the businesses. And we're going to talk about horizontal integration, and we're going to talk about vertical integration. Vertical is a bit more complicated, so we're going to start with the horizontal. All right. Here we go. If we are horizontally integrating, we are merging with a business in the same industry. So it's horizontal. So it's one hotel merging with another hotel. One car company merging with another car company. There are quite a lot of benefits to doing that. You already know the business. All right, you're taking over a competitor. You're increasing your market share, you're increasing the access to different customers, and you're gaining economies of scale. So it seems to be win-win as far as I can see. And a lot of these particular mergers, you've seen them. Just don't necessarily always recognize that that's what's happened. Yeah? So horizontal integration, buying or merging with another competitor in the same industry at the same stage of production. So if they're a primary business or extracting the raw materials, merge with them. If they're in the secondary, the manufacturing, and you're in the manufacturing, you merge with them. Right? Horizontal. If they're a tertiary or service-based business, and you're a tertiary service-based business, you're merging with them. So the point is that you're the same industry. You might have even heard this sort of idea, like some schools, international schools, will take over other international schools. They will. All right. And to be perfectly honest, given the situation that the world is in at the moment, I'd be very surprised as if at the end of it, that doesn't actually happen in some parts of the world. Yeah. The international school we were at in China decided to set up in a country that, well, at the moment is having some issues, called Myanmar, but they set up there. And another school, a competing school, set up just next door. And they're building their schools, going all well. And then the competing school started having financial trouble. So the school that we were with, that was setting up there, decided to buy them out, merge them. And then said, well, that's fine. Now we've got 2 campuses instead of 1. Done. Yeah. Worked perfectly well for them. That sort of thing happens. Yeah. It happens quite a bit, depending on where you're at. Okay, with international schools. I mean, Nexus is part of the Taylor's group. Yeah. So they can expand and do expand. They might choose to expand by adding another school in a different country, or there is the possibility that they could take over another school. Yeah, it's possible. It does happen. Because they're in the same industry, so there's not a big change. It's not difficult for them to do it. We already know how to be a school. So taking over another school might be quite straightforward. As I say, at the moment, a lot of international schools around the world are having financial difficulties. They are. Right? I've been in touch with economics teachers in different countries. Right? A number of them have done all sorts of moving around. There was one teacher and she was out of school and the school closed. Right? Out of money, closed. So they had to then go to another school. That happens. It's sad, but it does happen. Right, so that's horizontal integration. Same industry, same line of production, or same stage of production. And now you need to have a go, fill in the gaps. There you go. of minutes. Just thinking about that whole idea about schools taking each other over or merging with each other. And I remember that the school that we taught at in New Zealand did that. That there was the school that we taught at had a bit of money. Okay? And there was a school not that far away and it ran out of money. And so our school decided to buy it. So it did. And it turned it into a branch of its own school, our own school, but younger. So like the little ones down here, right? It created that because it didn't have that. And then the high school students who were there then got free places at our school, but it did mean that they had to convert their uniform and all of those sorts of things, and some parents weren't happy, and so they decided to go elsewhere and the like. But it was a big change because the school was an all-girls school, and then they came to our school, which was very much not an all-girls school. Okay? So that was a big change for them. You'd think they'd be quite happy, possibly with that move, but not everybody was. And I've got to say, they had a big upgrade in their uniform. All right? This is the school where the girls wore a brown dress thing and a straw hat. Not kidding. A hat made of straw. That was their uniform. A brown dress and a straw hat. So you would assume that they would have then been quite happy with the change in uniform at least. It looked a lot classier. All right. Well done, team. Let's have a look. Now, answers you should have done. Let's see. Horizontal integration by buying or merging with a competitor in the same industry at the same stage of production. A company is a successful business model, wants to add more customers, wants to increase their profits, wants to gain higher economies of scale. Buying or merging is also done to potentially diversify your products or services and reduce competitors in your marketplace. Examples include when one large hotel chain buys another. Yeah. So it can be that, right? That's quite a good one. It was the other day they were advertising there were 2 hotels for sale, a whole hotel, right? They were on the islands. I don't know, one of the islands just off of here. They were up for sale. Now, vertical integration is a bit more complicated. Okay, so apologies with that. But if you are integrating vertically, you're not on the same level of stage of production. You can still be in the same industry, potentially, but it's at a different stage of production. So the phrase that we talk about is the supply chain. So I'll give you an example, probably easier. Have an example. There's a business in New Zealand called Fonterra. I don't know if I've mentioned Fonterra before. Does anybody know what it makes? Yeah. You can ask Dr. Google. Dr. Google knows. It's about the 2nd biggest in the world or 3rd biggest in the world at producing something. Maybe 4th. And it's a New Zealand company. Does anybody know what it does? Probably not a big surprise when you see, given your extensive knowledge of New Zealand. What does it make? Yes, it's a dairy company, yeah? And as I said, it's one of the biggest in the world. The company that's bigger than it is a company you will have heard of called Nestle. The gap between Nestle and Fonterra is quite big in terms of size, okay? But it's still quite a big company. So they produce things like milk and butter and cheese and yogurt and all of those sorts of things. And they sell it all around the world. In fact, chances are, if you go into a supermarket, and I know you can because I do it, here you will be able to buy milk or cheese or butter, or maybe not yogurt, but definitely milk, cheese, and butter from Fonterra. Right? Now, Fonterra makes milk and cheese and butter. But where does the milk and cheese and butter come from? Where do you get milk from? Cows. Yeah. So Fonterra had to deal with the farms. So they did a special deal with the farms. Okay, an exclusive contract. So essentially, they own the farms. Okay. Then, where does the milk go from the farms? What do you have to do to milk to make it so that you can drink it? Well, before you transport it, what do you have to do to it? Yeah, you have to process it in order for it to become milk. So there's a processing stage. Right, that's owned by Fonterra as well. But then it's quite a specialist thing to be able to transport milk, because you need special trucks, right? They need to be quite big. Okay, so Fonterra also own the transport company. Yeah, you see how that works? Fonterra also own some retail decisions, like the marketing, etc., of the product, all controlled. So at each different stage, tertiary, they own, tertiary, service-based, got it right. Secondary, they own that, and to a large extent, primary. So each stage of production they own. Means the whole supply chain they are controlling. How are you able to save costs by controlling the whole supply chain? Yeah. Well done. Absolutely right. The farmers could charge a profit margin for the processing. The processing could charge a profit. The transport company could charge another profit. And that means the final product ends up being quite expensive. Instead, Fonterra says, you don't get a profit that way, you don't get a profit that way, and you don't get a profit that way. But we add a bigger profit on here. And we share that with all of you. And that's how it works. So your supply is guaranteed. You're not going to run out of milk necessarily, not easily at any rate, because you own the farm and the distribution and the manufacturing. Has anybody heard of a business called KFC? In New Zealand, we used to say Kentucky Fried Duck. Yeah? Never heard of KFC? Yes? Heard of KFC? You know why they're called KFC, by the way? No? Because they used to be called Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah? But not that long ago, I say not that long ago, it doesn't seem that long ago to me, but their marketing department worked out that people weren't buying the chicken anymore because they thought it was unhealthy. The reason why they thought it was unhealthy was because it was called fried chicken. So they rebranded the entire company. Instead of calling it Kentucky Fried Chicken, they called it KFC. and increase the sales. Just like that. They didn't change the product. It's still fried chicken. All they did was change it from being called fried chicken to being called KFC. Huge impact marketing has. Please, if anybody ever says to you marketing makes no difference at all, I can give you example after example where it does. Like profoundly so. There was a KFC in the UK that ran out of chicken. There was a chicken problem with the supply. It ran out of chicken. KFC running out of chicken is a bit surreal and a bit funny. But it did. Right. In America, there was another company, not KFC, but very similar to KFC, and they had invented a new chicken burger that Americans apparently just went absolutely nuts over. It was just the best thing ever. I don't know what was in it, okay? But apparently this was so popular that it was a bit of a problem for them. They ran out of the main ingredient because they couldn't get the supply. But if you control the supply, then you can control all of that. It's a little bit micromanaging, you'd suggest, but it does enable you to reduce all of the costs all the way along and then sell your product. Have you heard of a company called Apple? Constantly reinventing themselves. You won't know this, but it wasn't that long ago that Apple did something so revolutionary, everybody thought they were crazy and they thought it would never work. Turns out a whole bunch of other technology companies copied the exact same thing because it was so successful. Apple went into retail and created an Apple shop. And that was the first time a technology company had done that. All right. Previously, it was just, you know, like the IT warehouse sort of idea. Here's a whole selection of phones from a whole lot of different people. Now it's like, we have our own shop. Everybody thought he was crazy. This is Steve Jobs. You're making a mistake building your own shop. Okay, they built a prototype of the first one, by the way, and Steve Jobs, great story, Steve Jobs went into the prototype, looked around and said, no, I don't like it, tear it all down and rebuild it. And they did. Yeah. And he wanted the shop to be basically all glass, and he wanted, you know, weird, unusual things. Right, some of the, anybody been to an Apple shop that isn't like one of the ones here? Yeah, some of them are amazing. We went to the one in San Francisco. Anybody been to San Francisco? One in San Francisco was incredible. Yeah. It was one of those Apple shops where you can buy it right where you stand. They just bring their phone over. Oh, what happened? Yeah. And then you take it somewhere and they fix it all up for you. Take away. One of those sort of ones. There's a really amazing one in Shanghai. You almost go underground and it's kind of round. Right? We went special visit to Shanghai just to see the Apple shop. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. And there's another one somewhere, I can't remember where, but it's apparently the biggest one in the world, and it's apparently amazing. But is it New York? It's Apple. And again, nobody thought that that was a good idea. Yeah. Have you heard of a company called Amazon? Yeah, one or two. Yeah, they've gotten into trouble with their marketing of late with the little app logo that looks like Adolf Hitler. They've gone into retail too. They've created their own supermarkets, grocery stores. Amazon. And they're kind of cool because you walk in with your phone, click, click, and you walk in, and there's no people. You just take the things off the shelf, and then you walk out, and it detects it all and charges you for it through your Amazon account. Click, done. But it's an actual physical shop. This is an online retailer that started in somebody's garage. And now they've got their own little grocery store. Incredible. Right, vertical integration. Now, a little bit more on the terminology that you need here. Vertical integration, you've got to think about it in terms of tertiary, secondary, and of course primary. Okay, you remember those? We went through those again the other week. Primary, the raw materials, the extraction from the ground. Secondary, the manufacturing. Tertiary, the service end, the retail. So, if you're a manufacturing company and you merge with a tertiary company, that's called forwards. Vertical integration. You're going forward. If you're a secondary, a manufacturing business, and you decide that you're going to merge with the primary, the raw material company, then that's called backwards. Vertical integration. Because you're going down the supply chain. You're going up the supply chain, it's vertical. If you're going down the supply chain, it's... So if you're going up the supply chain, it's forwards. If you're going down the supply chain, it's backwards. So they're both vertical. So it's a little confusing. That's why examiners like to test you on that, because it's very easy to get them confused. So good questions can come out of that. Are we okay with that? Yeah? That's the most complicated thing you're going to do today. Backwards and forwards vertical integration. What did you learn at school today? I learned about backwards and forwards vertical integration. Gosh, you're going to sound smart at the dinner table tonight. Yeah? A whole bunch of words going on. Right, let's get rid of that. Now, I believe that the next thing here will be a closed gap exercise. Yes, it is. All right, have a go at this. A couple of minutes on this, and then you're going to have a look at some business mergers.
Do you want me to?
Okay. Filling in the gaps. short answer is no.
Yeah. It's just he's not.
No. Well, you know how there was this hybrid learning scenario where some were overseas.
Right.
So relatively new in the sense that was overseas and now isn't. But whilst was overseas, would sometimes be there and sometimes not. You know, it's that whole issue.
Sure. New this year? Joined this year?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that, but possibly. Is doing the trick that a lot of others will do, which will be, particularly when it was hybrid learning. You know, here's the answer. The answer is Dr. Google. You know,
Sure.
And therefore, I don't have to think. The strategy as well. It's a shame because he's actually got a brain. Right, because I've got his brother also, one of my other classes in IB, and he's quite smart.
Yeah.
So I've discovered. So I was really concerned because he's carbon copy once again.
Yeah.
But no, they did an activity the other day and he was showing real talent. But, you keep doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We got an email, all of us, from somebody.
Jade, right?
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
About looking for learning. And I was going to send a reply, and then I thought, well, you're already here, so I'm guessing that she would have just sent you anyway. Possibly. So I don't know what you want to, whether you want to talk through some of that with me at some point, and then we can actually have done something on that sort of line.
Yeah, sure.
And that way you've done it and I've done it as well. I also want to email her about one of my year 12s who I'm concerned about now. Because again, same issue, was overseas, now isn't. And here in the headlights is everything just kind of straight at them. He was definitely not strong right from the outset. So, mid-course exams. So, yeah. I mean, the thing that I've said to these guys, and you probably were here when I did, you know, mid-course, it's the middle of the course. So next term, effectively, they are year 11s.
That's right.
And when they're in year 11, they have only basically 2 terms worth of work. When they're officially in year 11, they have basically 2 terms worth of work to finish the course. So it's not a lot of time.
No.
And I had it this year with some year 11s who just mucked around in year 10, and obviously we were off, and then it was too difficult to get up in the morning to do their lessons, and you know, all of that. And then they came back and they hit their mock sequence, and all of a sudden alarm bells because they hadn't done the work.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I need to do, you know. So, and a number of them have worked really hard, but I've had about 5 pull out.
Okay. Yeah.
I had 23, and I'm down to 18.
Okay.
Now, 17. Just because there's the chances of them catching up now, it's just too tough. And it's better for them to work on their English and their science and maths and make sure that they do well in those.
Right.
I mean, it is a bit unusual. I mean, I come from New Zealand, right? So I find it quite odd that there are 9 subjects. You know? And why I still don't understand why you do that. I understand why, if you were a high academic achiever and you were doing extra subjects and, you know, advanced, you know, 1 year up sort of idea,
Sure.
then yeah, I can see that. But learners who, for whom, you know, English is an additional language, it's just got to be soul destroying every day.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, lesson to lesson, just
you know, in Thailand, my average reading age was 8 class doing this work, you know, and I'm not going, well, and they're all predicted, you know, A's and B's and C's, and I'm not going, no, there's just no chance.
That's it.
I can't, you know, get them to that level. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely not.
So
that's another topic of conversation, isn't it? The predictive grades and
yeah,
how they analyse that.
We have a lot of discussions about that in that.
Cat 4 and all that.
And why we report it to parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then the kids will start thinking, well, this is what I'm going to get.
Sure.
Yeah, no, you
I don't even have to work for it. I'm going to get this anyway. Yeah.
I mean, I got one of mine who's predicted an A in year 11, and the highest she's gotten, she got a C once, but she got a D in mocks. Come back from that, it's just too far. And it's how you calculate those. Yes, some of them are accurate, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
you need to take into more into account than just a random test that somebody does.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, for this subject, and then Vincent and I have actually discussed this. It's another example. Well, there's two. And I'm going to be investigating. I'll liaise with Matt, who's going to be the new head of faculty next year.
Okay.
And obviously Vincent, who's the new boss of most things. Okay. About whether we can have basically dual pathways within the same class. And yeah, that puts a bit more work on me. But it's kind of like HLSL for IB, but it will be Cambridge and something else, which will be more EAL friendly. That's the thought. And I'm going to do the research next term in the start of next year as to how that might work, and then whether it can be implemented next year, maybe, maybe not until the following year, because you'd have to obviously notify parents and set it all up and all of those sorts of things. So,
manageable.
Yeah. But it would also help them, because
I find that in history as well as important.
Yeah. All right, team, well done on that. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to very quickly just show you what was written, right? So, vertical integration, you're expanding by acquiring a business in the same supply chain. All right, so vertical integration, all right? Upstream, you're going up, all right? Forwards, backwards, you're going down. This supply chain. You're able to do this to secure supplies and distribution points. You're able to reduce your costs by doing so. It is complicated, I understand, right? But it is a great one for an examiner to ask you a question on. Now I'm going to drop this off the screen. All right. And I'm going to put this one on. There might be a bit of a lag here because of the internet. I apologize. I have just a very quick, may not get through it all. A little bit of a video. Obviously, adverts are there. Hold on.
Let's talk merger. These were matches made in business heaven. Welcome to OnePhoto.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 business mergers of all time. With this list, we're focusing on the M&A deals where buying parties acquired prominent subsidiaries that helped them enter into a new market and consolidate a leadership position. Though we're considering how big an individual deal was and how strategic the move may have been, we are excluding any mergers that ultimately failed. Our choices won't necessarily be the largest deals in history, but we will be considering unions that remain standing as a single entity today. Number 10, Pfizer plus Pharmacia equals Pfizer Inc. Founded in 1911, the rapidly growing Swedish pharmaceutical company Pharmacia showcased its first demonstration of market power with the purchase of American rivals Upjohn in 1995 and Monsanto less than 5 years later. During that time, Monsanto had been developing the anti-inflammatory drug known as celecoxib, which had been eyed by Pfizer during its final development stages. Beaten to the punch by Pharmacia, the American Pfizer announced a purchasing deal of Pharmacia as a whole in July 2002, with a transaction tag of $60 billion US. Less than 7 years later, Pfizer would agree to purchase rival Wyeth for approximately $68 billion. Today, Pfizer Inc. is worth more than twice as much at $172 billion US. Number 9, Royal Dutch Petroleum plus Shell Transport and Trading equals Royal Dutch Shell. Originally two separate entities from entirely different industries, the merge of the oil transporting company that was Shell and the Royal Dutch Petroleum Company was provoked to compete against the market's monarch, John D. Rockefeller, and his leading Standard Oil Company. The newly merged Royal Dutch Shell Group then quickly expanded to every emerging subfield in the industry, with more recent investments in renewable energy and power generation garnering massive public support and continued competitive profits. Despite a drop in sales in the last few years, Royal Dutch Shell stands as the 4th largest company in the world in terms of revenue and announced an agreement to purchase major British competitor BG Group for $70 billion US. Number 8, AT&T Inc. plus Bell South Corporation equals AT&T. Southwestern Bell, you got great connection. Originally Southwestern Bell, the company that was later renamed SBC Communications, made its first major mark with the purchase of former parent AT&T, adding Inc. as its new corporate surname in 2005. Its next target was former sort of sibling rival Bell South, the last of 7 regional Bell operating companies that emerged from the original AT&T's forced separation of subsidiaries following a lost antitrust lawsuit in 1982. The cost, $86 billion US. Today, the newly reformed AT&T stands as the 2nd largest mobile phone provider in the US, with its multiple subsidiaries garnering new users through stronger contract deals and new marketing tactics, particularly by claiming to carry the strongest 4G signal of any of its competitors.
For the best coverage, switch to AT&T. More bars in more places.
Number 7, British Petroleum plus Amoco equals BP plc. Originally part of Rockefeller's Standard Oil, Amoco garnered much of its initial success due to their significant contributions to the Allied forces' gas demands in the last Great War. Putting out industry innovations such as the modern gasoline tanker and drive-through filling stations made it an attractive firm for purchase by supermajor British Petroleum. Announcing a merge in 1998, it was the world's largest in its market at the time, with a transaction value of almost $50 billion US. Despite its massive losses following the Deepwater Horizon oil spill controversy, BP continues to stand as one of the top 10 largest oil companies in the world, with assets totaling $285 billion and with revenue streams as high as $350 billion. Number 6, Facebook plus Instagram equals Facebook.
You closed the Instagram acquisition. Yeah, can you talk about it now?
A portmanteau of instant camera and Telegram, the popular photo sharing service Instagram, was launched by developers Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger in October 2010. Virtually an Insta success, the free mobile app gained over 30 million users in less than 2 years, generating the attention of its then 5 times as popular sibling to be, Facebook. Acquiring the service for $1 billion US, it marks one of Zuckerberg and Friends' largest disclosed transactions. Since then, Instagram has grown to become one of the company's most popular mobile apps and has been multiplying its amount of active users extensively. That's a ton of skills.
Instagram has 130 million users, so you got to give them the advantage right off the bat. A lot of people using Instagram to share their photos, and now, of course, they're going to be sharing video.
Number 5, Exxon plus Mobil equals Exxon Mobil Corp.
Today, we step on the gas in a brand new vehicle with 0 kilometers on the odometer and over 200 years of experience behind the wheel.
Direct descendants of Rockefeller's Standard Oil, the successor siblings Exxon and Mobil found their way back into each other's firms a little under a century after separation. Yet another merger resulting in part from fear of being purchased by an overseas entity. The earliest talks and negotiations for the company that would emerge as ExxonMobil began shortly after BP's purchasing of Amoco. Tying the knot in 1999, ExxonMobil is now dominating its oil and gas rivals in terms of revenue. And coincidentally, aligning with its place on this list is the 5th largest in the world.
We're ExxonMobil. Empowering the world responsibly is our job.
Number 4, Travelers Group plus Citicorp equals Citigroup Inc.
All right, okay, so you have seen a lot of these companies, and there is more still to come that we will be looking at, well, tomorrow. Plus, we're also going to have a wee look at business mergers that didn't work, all right? And quite clearly, there will be some that will be quite spectacular with regards to that as well. Now, thank you for your work today. Pink stuff for your hands, so for your desk, blue stuff for your hands. Hey, tōnera, have a fantastic day. Thank you, team.